Good afternoon and welcome. 2.5 years ago, Nick and I put party differences aside to come together in the national interest and form the first coalition government in Britain for over 65 years. We were faced with a national economy in difficulty, with our nation's finances in debt and disarray after years of mismanagement and neglect. This was always going to involve tough decisions. And some people thought our coalition wouldn't make it through our first Christmas. But this government is now well into its third year. Because this coalition was not, and is not, some short-term arrangement. It is a serious 5-year commitment to give our country the strong, stable, and determined leadership that we need for the long term. At the heart of that commitment is one simple fact. Britain is in a global race. And that means an hour of reckoning for countries like ours. Some countries will sink, others will swim. And for Britain to be a success, we need to take the tough decisions that will enable us to compete and thrive. We need to fix the nation's finances by dealing with our debts. We need to rebalance and rebuild our economy. And we need to back the aspiration of hard-working families and businesses who want to get on and do the right thing. The challenges are great, and there is still a long way to go. But we are on the right track, and we are making progress. In just 2.5 years, we've cut the deficit by a quarter and set out a credible path towards our goal of a balanced budget. The economy is rebalancing. There are over 1 million new private sector jobs. In the first 2.5 years of this government, exports of UK goods to both India and Brazil went up by over 1/3, and exports of goods to China went up by almost 1/2. Last year, Britain became a net exporter of cars for the first time since 1976. We've cut income tax for 25 million taxpayers. We've halved it for those working full-time on the minimum wage. And we've taken over 2 million of the lowest paid people out of income tax altogether. We've introduced a benefits cap. We've delivered the biggest ever cash rise in the basic state pension. And we've guaranteed real terms increases in the NHS budget, with more of that money reaching the front line. Compared with 2010, there are over 5,000 more doctors working in our NHS, and there are 6,500 fewer managers. We've not balked at the tough decisions necessary to secure our future. Instead, we've ended the chronic short-termism that has too often let down our politics in the past, and seen far too many previous governments just leave vital issues in the pending tray marked too difficult. So we've broken the monopoly of state education with free schools, providing excellent education free to parents who send their children there. We've also established 2,000 academy schools. We've stopped dumbing down. We've introduced tough new powers on discipline in the classroom. There's a whole set of issues that are subject to this long-term reform from this government. Issues like putting our universities on a sustainable footing so they can compete with the very best in the world and give everyone a chance to go to them, irrespective of their background or income. Modernising our energy and transport infrastructure so we can keep up with our competitors in the global race. Regulating our banks properly so that immoral behaviour and the gross mistakes of the past are not repeated. We're dealing with the challenges of an ageing population. We've reformed public sector pensions so they are both affordable and fair for both public sector workers and the taxpayer. In every case, we've put the national interest at the heart of this government and put this country on a path to being a winner in the global race. Now, today is all about taking stock of the progress we've made and setting out some of the next steps that we want to take. Now, of course, there have been difficulties along the way. With public finances as broken as ours, that was, I think, inevitable. But I think we've made a lot of progress. And today we're publishing a document which shows what we've done and what we still have to do. And between now and the budget, we'll be setting out an additional set of reforms that go even further in taking the long-term decisions that are necessary to put us on the side of hard-working people, to create a bigger and stronger society, and to help Britain win in that global race. These reforms will include the following: new investment to provide more help to working families to cut the cost of childcare, more help for families who can afford a mortgage but are unable to raise a large deposit so they can buy their own homes, and new measures to limit state powers and extend personal freedoms. We'll also set out big new steps on some of the hardest and most important long-term issues that will shape the future for generations to come. On pensions, clarifying incentives to save and restoring dignity in retirement by tackling poverty in old age without relying on pernicious means testing. On social care, capping the potentially huge costs of long-term care faced by many families today, so that people can have the certainty to plan for their long-term needs. And on modernising our transport infrastructure, consulting on how to get private investment into our motorway and key trunk roads network, and extending High Speed 2 from Birmingham to the north to create a rail service that joins London to the northern cities in just under 2 hours, with the aim of bringing the journey from Scotland to London down to under 3 hours. All of these are yet more examples of a coalition and a government that is determined to fix the long-term problems that hold our country back. Now, of course, the road ahead won't be easy. There have always been issues on which we disagree, and doubtless there will be some more in the months ahead. But the key point is not whether you have disagreements, it is how you handle them. Where we disagree, we should do so, and we do so, respectfully, in a reasonable and civilised way. More importantly, Nick and I are completely united on the big issues that brought our two parties together in the national interest and which remain this government's sheet anchor today. On cutting the deficit and building a stronger, more balanced economy, on putting responsibility back at the heart of our welfare and education systems, on backing aspiration and getting behind the hard-working people and businesses that will enable our country to succeed in the global race. Government is at its strongest when making these big arguments, and on all of these issues, our resolve and our sense of shared purpose, if anything, have got stronger over these last 2.5 years. So over the next 2.5 years, it will, as far as we're concerned, be full steam ahead as we continue to put political partisanship to one side and do what is right to serve our country and its national interest. Thank you. Nick, over to you.
Everything this coalition government has done is there to serve one big purpose, which is to build a stronger economy in a fairer society, enabling everyone in this country to get on in life. And I think what's striking as we publish the midterm review today is that when you look around the developed world, look at America, Europe, here, actually all governments are facing some very big political as well as economic challenges as we clear up after the mess that was created in the crisis of 2008. And politically, that requires two things. Firstly, an ability to reach across party lines to act in the national interests. And secondly, an ability to act fast and boldly to deal with those challenges. And the dangers of not doing so, I think, are pretty obvious. You look at the kind of cliff-top political brinkmanship in Washington last week. Look at the failure of some European governments to get to grips with some of their economic problems quickly and boldly enough. And it's a source of immense pride to me, and I think everybody in the coalition government, that we, by contrast, have put partisan differences aside to act in the national interests and have acted fast and have acted boldly to deal with the economic and other challenges that this country faces. The other thing which strikes me as we publish the document today is that, of course, rescuing, repairing, reforming the British economy is the big task for this government. It's the big challenge of our times. In fact, in my view, in many ways, it's many of the other reforms that this coalition government has initiated, long-term reforms, social reforms, public service reforms and other reforms that will outlast and outlive the immediate economic challenges in front of us and will stand the test of time, whether it's making the tax system fairer, reducing the burden of income tax on millions of people on ordinary and low incomes by raising the point at which they pay income tax, aggressively closing tax loopholes and asking people at the top to pay their fair share. Whether it's the pupil premium, £2.5 billion of new money in the school system to crack this problem of educational underachievement for far too many of our youngsters from the poorest families. Giving people in retirement the reassurance they'll get a decent state pension through our triple lock guarantee. Revolutionising apprenticeships on a scale that this country hasn't seen in a generation. Reforming welfare to make sure there's always an incentive to work. Creating the world's first green investment bank. These and many other reforms are big, bold, long-lasting reforms that will, in my view, stand the test of time. And it's that same willingness, if you like, to set differences aside and to act in the long-term interests of the country that very much kind of underpins and informs the choices of the 6 new areas that David's just highlighted, where we'll be taking new steps and new initiatives in the remaining two and a bit years of this Parliament. And that's why we will act to provide better childcare. We will act to provide a single-tier pension. We will act to make social care more affordable. We will act to get more investment in our transport infrastructure. We will act to help people with their mortgages and build more homes for them to live in. We will act to enshrine and protect people's everyday British freedoms. Now, there are lots of things that I think we've all learnt. I've certainly learnt over the last 2.5 years during the course of the coalition government so far. I think I've certainly learned, we've all learned that the damage done to the British economy back in 2008 was deeper, more severe and worse than anyone predicted at the time, and that means that the economy is taking longer to heal. I've learned that, you know, when you take big, difficult, controversial decisions, you get politically attacked from all sides. I think pretty well from day one, there were voices on the right saying that the Liberal Democrats were too strong in the government, and voices on the left saying the Liberal Democrats were too weak in the government. I've always thought that if both sides make diametrically opposite criticisms, we've probably got it roughly about right. But the biggest thing that I've learned is that, you know, for the vast majority of people in this country, whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever you do, whoever you vote for, what you rightly expect is for politicians to set aside their differences and just get on with the job. And that's why this coalition government, in the next 2.5 years, will use every day of every working week, will use every penny of taxpayers' money, will use every department in Whitehall to make sure that we build that stronger economy in a fairer society, enabling every person in this country to get on in life. Thank you.
Thank you very much.